Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blank and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
All right. You all ready? It's hot. Hello and welcome to the GSMC television podcast. We're part of the mighty GSMC podcast network, and I'm your patriotically tear-gassed host, Howard Fletcher. I am joined as always with my trusted engineer, Jack the Black Pug, and we are positively honored and thrilled to be here with you once again. It's now officially summer, and the climate is not the only thing getting hot in the DC area. If you've been watching the news, I'm safe. If you are new to the show, I'd like to give you a very warm welcome and thank you for giving us a try. We know that there's a lot of things that you could choose to listen to spend your time, and we appreciate you choosing to spend some of that time with us. We aim to please. So stick around, and I'm sure you'll hear something that you like. We want to keep you coming back. And if you're one of our loyal return listeners, you know how I feel about you. You are truly the reason that I'm here. Let's have some peaceful fun today. We have another jam-packed show for you today. Madison Avenue wants a discount. Dick Wolf puts the hammer down, my man. Universal wants to start producing shows again. Kate Kane is leaving Batwoman along with Ruby Rose. I'll always bring you breaking news as it comes in, and I will recap the third episode of the Starz series, Hightown. So let's get started with some breaking news. Craig Gore, a writer whose credits include SWAT and Chicago PD, has been fired from Dick Wolf's upcoming Law & Order spinoff series after controversial Facebook posts about looters and the recent curfew put into place across Los Angeles. Quote, "I will not tolerate this conduct, especially during our hour of national grief. I am terminating Craig Gore immediately," Dick Wolf said in a release statement. Photos on social media show Gore holding a weapon with the caption, quote, "curfew." In another comment, Gore threatened to light mother effers up who are trying to F with my property, in reference to protests that took place in Los Angeles on Monday. Gore's posts, which incited a strong reaction on social media, come amid calls for criminal justice reform after George Floyd was killed by a police officer in Minnesota. His posts gained traction on social media after Drew Janda, who worked with the Oprah series, Greenleaf, and HBO shows Big Little Lies and Barry, brought attention to Gore's remarks. Now, this guy Gore, he previously listed himself on his Facebook profile as the co-executive producer of Law & Order Organized Crime. And that's the show he was just fired off of. That's the new Chris Meloni series that's a spinoff from SVU. Chris Meloni played Elliot Stabler on SVU. He left a few years back. Now they're bringing him back in Dick Wolf fashion with his own Law & Order series. Anyway, Maloney was asked about Gore, and he replied in a tweet that he has no idea who this person is or what they do. Then later on, Maloney clarified in a tweet that the showrunner on Law & Order SVU Organized Crime, Law & Order Organized Crime, I'm getting them all mixed up, is actually Matt Olmstead, not Gore, adding that he has gotten no word on any hirings and he still doesn't know who Gore is. On that same day, Gore posts the SWAT Writers Room on the SWAT Writers Room Twitter account, calling for law enforcement to de-escalate the conflicts and not exacerbate them. Aaron Rashad Thomas, one of the show's executive producers, said that he is frustrated, angry, but not determined to do better, on screen and off. Other than SWAT and Chicago PD, Gore recently had a DEA series in development at Fox. However, according to sources, the network's passed on the project. They've been given a script, but apparently they weren't too impressed. So this guy Gore, he's another guy who has used Twitter and gotten himself in trouble, and Dick Wolf kicked him off the street. And I know I'm a big Dick Wolf fan, as the listeners to the show know, but there's certain people you don't want to get fired by in this business, and Dick Wolf is one of them. Aaron Spelling back in the day was another one of those guys. They just have too much control over the networks. And if you're somebody who looks like you got in bad with him, nobody else wants to touch you. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to this guy Gore. I'm not saying that he got blackballed. Yeah, he's going to get blackballed. He probably won't. I mean, I don't think Dick Wolf is a blackballing type of guy, but because he got fired by Dick Wolf, I think people will be hesitant to work with him again. Okay, and here's some more breaking news. Lea Michele has broken her silence with an apology after her former co-star, Samantha Ware, accused her of traumatic microaggressions on the set of Glee. Quote, "I apologize for my behavior and for any pain which I have caused," Michele posted in a lengthy statement on Instagram. "One of the most important lessons of the last few weeks is that we need to take the time to listen and learn about people's perspectives and any role we have played or anything we can do to help address injustices they face." Michele posted a tweet on May 29th in support of Black Lives Matter protests in the wake of George Floyd's death at the hands of police. Quote, "George Floyd did not deserve this. This was an isolated incident and must end. Black Lives Matter," Michele tweeted. In response to her tweet, Ware, who's African-American, posted that when she worked on the show, Michele made microaggressions that traumatized her and made the job, quote, "a living hell." Quote, "Remember when you made my first television gig a living hell? Because I'll never forget," Ware tweeted in all caps. "I believe you told everyone that if you had the opportunity, you would S in my wig," amongst other traumatic microaggressions that made me question a career in Hollywood, end quote. Now, in her apology on Wednesday, Michele responded, quote, "While I don't remember ever making this specific statement, I've never judged others by their background or the color of their skin. That's not really the point. What matters is that I clearly acted in ways that hurt other people," end quote. And there's some more stuff in this article, which I'll just leave alone. I just read this article because I couldn't believe it. Not that I couldn't believe that this person who I've never heard of, I don't watch Glee, I don't know who these two people are. And I totally believe that she may have told somebody that she would S in this other actress's wig. And maybe this other actress felt as though she was being targeted because she is black. Now, for the sake of the audience that's never listened to me before, I am black. Okay, so if that's the case, like I guess this lady, what's her name, Lea Michele said, I mean, you can't. Everyone's perception is their reality. So I'm not going to say that's not what happened. I'm sure that is what happened if that's what Ware says what happened. The only thing is for me, I guess it's the whole traumatic microaggressions. Being somebody grew up in the late 60s, 70s. This is just vocabulary that wasn't around, that we didn't use then. And there were aggressions and bullying was around, but traumatic microaggressions, I mean, if it's a microaggression, when I was being raised, it was like you just have to deal with it. I'm not saying that there aren't bad work environments. There's because there are. And I'm not saying there aren't catfights, because there are. And there's certainly racial discrimination. I've suffered it my entire life. But there are times when, in the words of Alonzo Harris in Training Day, you just got to man up. I mean, I realize that these are two women here, but they got to man up, I guess. I mean, I want us to get away from using terms like traumatic microaggressions. If I can just put a little opinion on this thing. There are times when you're going to have to stand up for yourself, or you're going to have to find allies and stand up and all stand up together. That's all. And because if not, they're traumatic. Here's a news flash for you. They're traumatic microaggressions for the rest of your life. That's called competition. And there are people who, during the course of competition, might throw a few insults your way. Okay, you're going to have to learn how to deal between the insults and what's generally serious discrimination or people trying to sabotage your success. This lady Ware didn't say she did anything except for say, if I had the opportunity, I was going to defecate in your wig, which, I don't know. That is a microaggression. And it obviously traumatized her. I'm glad they worked it out. But, folks, I don't give advice too much on this podcast, but I will give it to you now. Do what I said if you can. Learn how to deal with these things and confront them, instead of doing it over Twitter and walking around with resentments because it's not healthy. Okay, that's it for my old man rant of the day and my advice, unsolicited advice for you. I'm going to talk next about Madison Avenue. They want to get a discount on their advertising time. Until then, go make yourself a stiff drink or eat some edibles or whatever you need to get over me ranting in your ear. And we'll be back after we pay some bills. Don't go away.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
All right, I'm back. You ready to buy ad time? I used to sell ad time at one time for Clear Channel. Yeah, I'm going to talk about advertising time and the networks because it's around the time of the year when advertisers are going to have to make deals with networks to buy ad times for television. And because of the pandemic, a lot of things have changed. So I thought this might be interesting to talk about on the show. TV networks have some news for people on Madison Avenue, though, that TV ads they still cost money. Even amid this pandemic, it's going to cost them. The nation's big media companies are trying to resist great pressure from advertisers and media buyers to take severe cutbacks in ad rates in early talks as part of the industry's annual upfront advertising market. According to 3 executives familiar with the discussions, their pushback suggests owners of networks like CBS, NBC, ABC, and Fox are betting that a return of favorite TV elements like sports will draw new interest from sponsors and generate more demand for TV commercials, and potentially help them avoid capitulating to the most onerous demands. Viacom CBS, Walt Disney, Fox, Warner Media, and NBC Universal declined to make comments to the reporters that were researching the stories I found. There's very little question that the networks are facing headwinds. No one familiar with this industry believes that they'll match the haul of ad commitments secured in last year's market. Experts estimate that the nation's 5 English language networks won between $9.6 billion and $10.8 billion for primetime ad inventory. Now, that's the 4th consecutive year that the network saw an increase in volume for their primetime schedules. They sold a lot of ad time over the last few years. One media executive says some clients have struck early deals in this year's market that are significantly reduced in terms of cost of reaching 1,000 viewers. And that's the measure known as CPM. And that's the way that they price this ad time. They say, okay, we're going to charge you this much money to reach this 1,000 viewers, and we think that you'll do that in this, with this particular show or spot. TV networks and their advertisers speak that language. Some clients may be wondering whether they can get rollbacks or CPM declines, owing to the fact that this year's severe conditions have changed the market a lot. The translation is advertisers want to get the hookup. They don't expect to pay as much for advertising since everything has been the economy has basically collapsed. And many agencies have already indicated that some troubled clients won't even be able to start negotiating for ad time until the fall, when their businesses can better project how much money they're going to make because some of them have been almost completely out of business, especially the restaurants. Even so, there's an effort by some TV giants to resist bigger calls for reductions that would reverse the gains the networks have made in recent years. They don't want to stop making money. They don't want to tell their stockholders they're going to make less money this year. And so they don't want to cut their prices. Most people who are serious capitalists do not. Quote, the networks are going to see similar increases to previous years until they see budgets being down significantly. Agencies should be looking for minimal increases at worst, says one media buyer, noting that the bulk of this year's upfront efforts have yet to move. Quote, the gap is too wide right now, and there are still too many unknowns to get much traction in negotiations right now. Now, the early maneuvering comes as the TV industry tries to move forward in an unprecedented moment. The coronavirus pandemic has forced most productions to shut down, meaning that the networks can't start taping new episodes of comedies and dramas. So there's nothing to buy ad time for because they don't even know what shows are going to be on the schedule. The contagion has scuttled all live sports, which generates some of TV's biggest audiences and commands its top ad prices. The industry typically kicks off its upfront with glitzy presentations and costly parties in New York. And as reported here in April on the show, the networks have resorted to private streaming video outreach and video conferences to pitch their fall schedules and what they can offer for advertisers. But right now, they really have nothing to show them, and it's easier to close that sale when you can wine and dine someone rather than over a Zoom conference. Madison Avenue has less to give. Travel marketers, movie studios, automobile manufacturers, and some restaurants have pulled back on advertising. In fact, several clients canceled some portion of their third quarter commitments to TV advertising altogether. They're just not sure which direction they're going to go in, which direction their business is going to go in. And if you don't know that, you really don't know how much you want to invest in advertising. So at issue are the rates the advertisers will pay. Thanks to an influx of new direct-to-consumer advertising from companies like Wayfair and Warby Parker, demand for TV advertising rose last year, prompting marketers to agree to pay some of the highest CPM increases in recent memory. NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox, and the CW pushed for hikes of 13% or more in 2019, and they had planned on charging even more for advertising this year. Well, chances are the networks are going to be hard-pressed to match that performance at all. And executives familiar with the current talks say that media buyers are pushing for insurance or better than usual rates, in quotes, in order to exchange for buying time now. So if they don't get a good discount, they're not going to buy time now, and the networks are left with advertising time they need to fill up. So they're kind of at an impasse, and this is going to affect television in a good way or a bad way. We'll see what happens. But in this negotiation right now, the networks, they kind of still have the advantage because they have a good reason to delay. Because sports leagues are deciding how they're going to come back. Already ESPN, Warner Media, and Fox have seen tangible support for early stage events like at the NFL draft, celebrity golf match between Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, which I watched. It wasn't the best, but it was the only thing on, and it got unbelievable ratings. The return of NASCAR, they've been pulling in really big numbers. And the National Hockey League has already articulated a plan to hold postseason play, and the NBA is mulling over a similar type of return in Disney World. I had mentioned that a couple of shows ago. So as the demand increases, some clients who had planned to sit down on the sidelines may have to get back on the field to match competitors who are returning to active advertising mode. So what that means is that if McDonald's decides, okay, we'll pay for that time, then Burger King and Kentucky Fried Chicken and their competitors are going to have to step up to the plate as well. So it's almost better for the networks to wait out the sports leagues to see if they're going to come back. So the way it stands now is, from some of the people that I've talked to that are in the industry, I do have friends who are media buyers, and from the articles that I read, is this. Believe it or not, advertisers are probably still going to have to pay more money for the same size spot in the same placement of a spot than they did last year, even though the economy is where it is. And that's because when things get back on board, like it looks like they're going into the fall, there's going to be heavy competition. So the networks, while they won't make the money they thought they were going to make in 2020, they thought they were going to be able to make, like last year, they had a 13% increase in rates. They thought they were going to be able to have a similar or even higher increase in advertising rates this year because they're just greedy. They're probably only going to have to get they're only going to have a single digit increase. Therefore, instead of making $10 billion, they'll probably make $13 billion, but they're going to make billions of dollars anyway. So a small increase, after all, is better than none. It caught my attention because it kind of shines some light onto why some of these sport leagues, these teams, are coming back. Now, obviously, they want to come back because they want to make some money, because if they, like the NBA and the NHL, and even baseball that hasn't even started yet, they're missing out on, there's been a lot of opportunity costs lost because they've been shut down. So obviously they want to come back, but there are also pressures from outside of those sports that want them to get up and running too, especially the television industry, because they aren't going to be able to charge what they normally charge for advertising time unless they can get these sports leagues back up and running. So there are just a lot of people that make money off of these sporting events that want to get them up and running. The challenge is going to be, can we do so safely with COVID-19? And now, will there be civil unrest that will make crowd situations dangerous? Hopefully, neither of those things will be as big a problem as they are this very moment. Next, I see Jack waving his paw at me, so I think we have some breaking news coming in. We're going to talk about that. And later, we're going to get into some Hightown. Don't go away.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Things are starting to open up. They won't open the studios. We'll see if they can do it. All right, I'm back. Donna Langley. Now, she's the chairman of Universal Filmed Entertainment Group, and she's called on Los Angeles County authorities to resume all film and television production, following the submission of a 22-page blueprint outlining coronavirus safety guidelines. Representing the wider industry, Universal's on the forefront of this. On a conference call with the County Economic Resilience Task Force on Tuesday, Langley highlighted a white paper report delivered to California Governor Gavin Newsom on Monday and asked that production resume immediately. Television and film sets have been shuttered since mid-March as the pandemic took hold of the country. And as you all recall, that's all I've been reporting on, is that this particular show has been pushed back. This movie is not going to come out this year. It's going to come out in 2021, and they're ready to roll again. Here's a quote. Quote, "If there is any delay in lifting overall restrictions on filming activities based on protocols and procedures outlined in the white paper, we'd like you to identify and authorize certain sectors, roles, and job functions that can immediately resume with appropriate safety protocols in place," Langley said. Now, lower-risk jobs Langley referred to included post- and pre-production, set construction, video editing, and music scoring. All areas that function in relative isolation and are not as populated as filmed scenes where departments convene. Langley pointed out that the industry has demonstrated innovation in creating and delivering new content to audiences around the globe, but underscored the need for regional continuity, especially in the face of potentially losing business to other states further along in the reopening phases. Now, as many of you know, they used to do all the filming in California at one time. But as tax incentives, as other states saw this as a way to bring in income, they've been offering the studios a lot of tax incentives to come and film in their state. So a lot of films are now being made in Atlanta. There have been some filming in the Washington, D.C. area where I live. It used to be, you get a lot of CGI of D.C. in movies, especially when they're knocking down buildings and stuff. But there have been a lot of productions that have filmed here, especially like House of Cards, because it took place in D.C. and it wasn't necessarily superheroes knocking things down. Like the Spider-Man movie, Far From Home, that was not filmed here. Not Far From Home. Was it Homecoming? It was not filmed here because they were running up and down the Washington Monument. So that was all CGI. But a lot of more stuff has been filmed here. And I think Langley is concerned that California is going to start losing more and more filming contracts if they don't open up soon. Now, protocols outlined in Monday's white paper include regular screenings, access to personal protective equipment, diagnostic testing, cleaning and disinfecting work sites, and appropriate response should an employee contract COVID-19 or face exposure. The white paper is a result of a collaborative effort of production companies, unions, and guilds working to provide governments with a set of guidelines to safely resume production. Now, I think it's kind of ironic that Universal is running point on this. Maybe it's not ironic, it's probably smart, because Universal was, as we've reviewed on this show, one of those companies that was faced with how are we going to make money during this pandemic. And they were the first company to say, we're not going to put Trolls World Tour in the theaters. We're going to go straight to video on demand. And they really have been proactive in trying to keep cash flow going through while other companies were kind of stuck for about a month. Now, the task force is around 50 participants, and it was put together by the industry-wide Labor Management Safety Committee. And that's a long-established entity that deals with safety and training concerns related to production. And that committee includes safety, physical, production, and labor relations executives from major studios and union reps from the Screen Actors Guild, from DGA, from the Teamsters, IATSE, I don't know what that is, but it was organized, the whole thing was organized through the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. So let's hope they make some headway in this, because there are some productions that are really stuck and they don't want to move out of the LA area. They just want to get back to work. Here is some more breaking news on a story that I find very interesting. Whoever ends up under the cowl in season 2 of Batwoman, they're not going to be playing Kate Kane. Now, following the surprise departure of Ruby Rose from the title role at the end of the CW superhero drama's first season, the show has opted to create a new character to play Batwoman rather than recast Rose's role of Kate Kane. And Kate Kane is supposed to be the cousin of Bruce Wayne in the comic books. Now, as far as I know, I don't read a lot of I read comic books, and you all who listen know that. I haven't read a lot of Batwoman comics, but the ones that I have, Kate Kane is Batwoman. I don't know of anyone else who is Batwoman. So this might be something that might be breaking new ground and exclusively a CW production thing. I do know this, that Ruby Rose, while I said she did a very good job, and, you know, I think most people would say she did a good job, she is not she's not of the physical stature of Batwoman. I mean, she was just too wiry, too petite. And so I think it's a smart move to, rather than put somebody, I would imagine, I'm hoping, and I would imagine that they're going to look for somebody who's built a little bit more athletically than Ruby Rose, and come back with somebody with that big of a different look and say, this is Kate Kane. It might be just too unacceptable to the audience. So it makes a lot of sense for them to go in a different direction. Now, word of the change came via a since deleted casting notice post to a Batwoman Reddit forum. Everything's on Reddit. I didn't even know there was a Batwoman Reddit forum, but there is. Now, per Decider is a website, entertainment website or industry website, you should check it out sometime, which first reported the news. The new character's name is Ryan Wilder. Now, whether that's a placeholder name or that is going to be the name is unclear. Sometimes they'll just name somebody just so they can say, you know, when they call the actress to come read for the part, they say, this is your name. It's described, and the part is described as a woman in her mid-20s who is about to become Batwoman. We already knew that before I read that. But anyway, here's another little character profile they give. She's likable, messy, a little goofy, and untamed. She's also nothing like Kate Kane, the woman who wore the bat suit before her, the notice reads. With no one in her life to keep her on track, Ryan spent years as a drug runner, dodging the GCPD, that's the Gotham City Police Department, and masking her pain with bad habits, which probably is drinking. Maybe something different now that, you know, they try to be a very progressive show. Maybe it's opiates, who knows. A girl who would steal milk for an alley cat could also kill you with her bare hands. Ryan is the most dangerous type of fighter, highly skilled and wildly undisciplined. She's an out lesbian, athletic, raw, passionate, fallible, obviously, and very much not like your stereotypical all-American hero. Now, Batwoman made history in the 2019-2020 season as the first scripted live-action TV series to feature a lesbian superhero at the top of the call sheet. Rose made a surprise announcement on May 19th that she had exited the series, saying in a statement that this is a decision I have not made lightly, as I have the utmost respect for the cast, crew, and everyone involved with the show in both Vancouver and in Los Angeles. That's where they filmed the show. I am beyond appreciative to executive producers Greg Berlanti, Sarah Schichter, and Caroline Dries for not only giving me this incredible opportunity, but welcoming me into the DC universe they have so beautifully created. Now, Warner Brothers, who produces the series, said, and the CW said in a statement that they would cast a member of the LGBTQ community, just like Ruby Rose. So they're not going to be losing that aspect of the character. And yes, Kate Kane in the comic books is a lesbian also. Well, I think this is pretty good. A good idea. You know, there are flaws in, I watched this show and it's flawed highly, but there are some good actors on the show. And I thought Ruby Rose did the best she could with what she had to work with. Hopefully this new person will be able to be a more dynamic Batwoman, and maybe the show will pick up. Now, there's another actor on the show, this guy who plays a character called Luke Fox, who's Lucian Fox's son, if you're in the Batman, if you know anything about Batman. But he goes on in the comic books to be another Batman offshoot superhero. This guy on the show, he's like 5'6". And so I don't, again, and he does a good job. It's not like he's a bad actor. It's just like Ruby Rose. I don't think they're going to be able to evolve that character into what he's supposed to be because he just doesn't have the physical stature to carry it off. Anyway, I'm a big fan of Rachel Skarsten, who plays Alice on the show, and so I hope that she comes back. Next, AMC releases a statement that makes Universal look smart and might make John Fithian shut his mouth. Be back in a second. Don't go away.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, let's get into this movie thing, Jack. Let's chop this up. All right, AMC Theaters, the world's biggest movie theater chain, said on Wednesday that it has substantial doubt that it can remain in business after closing locations across the globe during the coronavirus pandemic. The theater chain, which closed its theaters earlier this year, expects to have lost between $2.1 billion and $2.4 billion in the first quarter. That is a lot of cheese. The company also said that its revenue fell about $941.5 million, which was down roughly 22% from the $1.2 billion in the same quarter last year. This quarter, the situation has gotten substantially worse. Quote, "We are generating effectively no revenue," the company said in a regulatory filing on Wednesday. Now, AMC will continue to monitor the potential lifting of various government operating restrictions, but added that the chain has serious challenges even if the restrictions are lifted. That includes studios holding back new films from being shown. Now, I've reported several times on this show that a lot of the studios, even if the theaters open, have decided, because they know people aren't going to go straight to the theaters, to hold back on stuff like the Fast and the Furious sequel, F9, and Jurassic Park, and a lot of things. They're thinking about holding them back. Wonder Woman got pushed back. There are a lot of movies that they don't know whether they're going to release this year until they see what people do. Here's another quote. Quote, "Even if governmental operating restrictions are lifted in certain jurisdictions, distributors may delay the release of new films until such time that operating restrictions are eased more broadly, domestically and internationally, which may further limit our operations," the company said. The company said that it had a cash balance of $718.3 million as of April. Quote, "We believe we have the cash resources to reopen our theaters and resume our operations this summer or later," AMC said. "Our liquidity needs thereafter will depend, among other things, on the timing of a full resumption of operations, the timing of movie releases, and our ability to generate revenues." The company's stock rose 4% after initially declining 8% in early morning trading on Wednesday. Now, there are some people who are feeling optimistic about the movie industry coming back. And, the movie industry is not going to completely collapse and go away. My concern, I guess, or my question is about the movie theater industry, because the more technology allows people to have a really good experience at home, and the more that the group experience might have a stigma attached to it, streaming might be the way for these that movies get distributed in the future. That's just the way it is. So to repeat, the coronavirus outbreak ravaged the movie theater business. Movie theaters, large and small, were closed because of the outbreak, and some of the year's biggest films, Disney's Mulan, Wonder Woman 1984, F9, as I mentioned earlier, Jurassic Park, World Domination, or whatever it's called, were delayed. Now, this is a paragraph I got out of the Hollywood Reporter, which I thought was interesting because, like I said, listeners to the show know that I've been talking about this since March. Movie theaters like AMC also face another existential threat because audiences can watch movies at home. This was the case with Universal's Trolls World Tour, which bypassed theaters for digital release. Universal's decision to release Trolls on demand caused a feud between the studio and AMC, leading the chain to ban Universal's films from its theaters. And that brings me again to my buddy, John Fithian of the Theater Owners Association, who started all of this aggressive rhetoric toward Universal for not wanting to run Trolls in theaters. He said, he went on this long tour. I was going to say a rant, but it wasn't a rant. He went to a lot of media outlets in the trades, Hollywood Reporter, Decider, Variety, etc. And he gave them interviews talking about how Universal is undercutting the movie theater industry, by releasing Trolls World Tour and not just waiting until theaters could open again. Now, I understand he is a lobbyist for the theater industry, so he's doing his job. However, he took it another step further and he said, if Universal doesn't change this policy, we're going to ban Universal. Well, he was encouraging movie theater chains to ban Universal, and AMC took that step out there to say, okay, we're not going to run any more Universal films. Now you hear that that AMC is in financial trouble. So with the theaters, things getting relaxed now and the theaters starting to open, AMC potentially is going to be rejecting titles like this. Jordan Peele's production of Candyman. Jordan Peele is, he's not directing it, but he's producing a remake of the horror movie Candyman. The trailer's out there. You can go to YouTube to look at it. It looks very good. And you know Jordan Peele has been making some great horror movies. I'm sure the movie's going to make money. Sing 2. That's another Universal picture. They're not going to get that one. Jurassic World Domination. I just mentioned that. They're not going to get that one. Minions, The Rise of Gru. Minions are ubiquitous. You know that's going to do well. They're not going to get that one. F9. That's the next one in the Fast and the Furious franchise. That you can print money for that one. And also there's an unnamed Blumhouse movie that's slated for January. Now, Blumhouse is the movie studio that comes out with a lot of horror movies. They're medium budget movies. They used to be low budget movies, but now they're medium budget movies, but they always turn a profit. And the Blumhouse is going to release this one in January, when usually in the last couple of years it's changed, but usually you used to dump your bad movies in January. Now, horror movies and strange, like A24 and Blumhouse have been releasing their movies like in January and February, when there's not a whole lot of this summer blockbuster competition, and making a killing. Okay, so Universal, they're going to miss out on that Universal picture. So, like I said, I just thought that strategy was just dumb. They should not have just thrown down the gauntlet with Universal, and I think they're going to lose out because of it. AMC and John Fithian, they might be sorry for talking all that crap to Universal. Now they have to go back to them. See, if AMC opens up, and they already said, now I know that $700 and some million is a lot of money to individuals, to me, and probably to you too. It's not a whole lot of money for a chain of movie theaters. It's not going to last very long. They're going to need to get some cash flow going. And if they don't have movies in their theater that people want to go to, that are willing to risk their lives to see, they're not going to do so well. So to say, we're not going to run Universal Pictures was just dumb. That said, all of those movies I named, with the exception of Jurassic World and F9, might end up streaming anyway. Because if people stop going to the movies as often as they did before, Universal's just going to stream them. That's what they did with Trolls World Tour. Now, to be honest, as I mentioned also, Trolls World Tour tested poorly overseas in Singapore. And so that, I'm sure, was an incentive for them to go straight to video on demand. And they did it was a good business decision. Movies like F9 and Jurassic World, they need to be shown on the big screen. They invested a lot of money in them, and they need to get actually those ticket sales. They're not going to make as much money on them if they don't go for ticket sales. The problem is going to be that they're not going to be able to fill up the theaters like they used to if theaters start taking seats out or doing some sort of social distancing in the theater. So it's going to be a big challenge for them. But I just don't think that was very smart for AMC to kick Universal out. And this story that came up today really piqued my interest, because I was like, wow, they're in financial straits. And if they have to go back to Universal, Universal is going to put it to them. Universal, they want to run their stuff in the theaters, but whatever deal they had with AMC before, I'm sure they're going to cut a better deal with them now. And AMC just kind of screwed all that up. Way to go. So that's it for the outlook with movies and AMC. I'd like to know if you'd like to go to the movies when they open. I don't know if I will, but please email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com and let me know what you think. Next, I got some more on the CW. I always you can get your CW news from Howard. You know that. And they came out with their fall lineup, so I'm going to go over that really quickly with you too. Go get something to eat. I'll be right back. Don't go away.
Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. Together we dive into the world of sci-fi and science fiction. From episodes of Star Trek, Star Wars, to The Walking Dead, Resident Evil, all the hot new science fiction movies from the back doors of Marvel or DC. The Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. You'll never look at science fiction the same way again.
Yeah, all right. Ready, Jack? Ready for some devils? got some more CW news for you guys. The CW is adding another acquired series to its fall 2020 lineup. The network has picked up the French-Italian co-production Devils. The series is described as an international thriller that follows Massimo Riguro, the charismatic yet ruthless head of trading at the NYL, one of the world's most important investment banks, and his mentor, NYL CEO Dominic Morgan, who's played by Patrick Dempsey, who I think is also an executive producer on this show. After Dominic appoints another colleague over Massimo, following a bitter promotion battle, Massimo finds himself named prime suspect in a murder investigation. Fighting to clear his name, Massimo becomes involved in an intercontinental financial war and is forced to choose between supporting Dominic or going up against him. Now, as I mentioned in the past, and I did start off saying that they acquired another series because there were production shutdowns because of coronavirus. What a lot of companies have done, and the CW has done a lot of this off season, so to speak. They picked up international programs and programs that were just streaming or on pay-per-view. There's some shows that you could only get if you had, like, say, Comcast, and you could get them on demand, but they weren't on a particular channel. Well, the CW picked up a lot of these for the next season. Now, this series, Devils, is going to air on Wednesday at 8 p.m. It's followed by another acquired series, Coroner, and the move shifts the CW's previously announced fall schedule, with the acquired series Dead Pixels now likely to air this summer after being previously set for the Wednesdays in the fall. Now, this show Devils is based on the novel I Diavoli. Okay, you have to excuse me in my Italian. I Diavoli by Guido Maria Brea. And Devils is produced by Sky Italia. Sky is a production company. They do a lot of stuff in Europe, do a lot of stuff in Britain, along with Canal, and Lux Vita in association with Sky Studios. And Sky Studios is the umbrella corporation for all of the European productions over there. So quickly, I am going to go over, in the rest of this segment, I'm going to go over what is the CW Fall 2020 schedule as of now. I know you all are on the edge of your seats, so here it is. On Mondays, from 8 to 8:30 p.m., it's Whose Line Is It Anyway? Which I am flabbergasted that that's still on the air. Probably a great show. I haven't watched it since it first came on when I probably still had hair. I mean, that's how long ago it was. And it's still on. Well, if you like that show, stay in your seat because at 8:30, they're running another episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway? So on Monday, you get back-to-back episodes. And at 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock on the CW on Monday, Penn and Teller, Fool Us. Never watched that show. Tuesday, from 8 to 9, Swamp Thing. That is a show that I probably will watch. Those of you who know me know that I will give any superhero show a go. If I have the channel it's on or the streaming service it's on. I don't have DC Universe, so I haven't seen all of them, but Swamp Thing came from DC, and this is one of those shows that the CW acquired because they couldn't produce their normal stuff, and they wanted to put new programming on the fall, so Swamp Thing, so I will check that out. 9 to 10 on Tuesday is Tell Me a Story, which is the updated version of fairy tales, which are more adult and gruesome, and so I think that might be, I probably won't have time to watch that unless I bail on Swamp Thing, but I'll probably record one episode and give it a look. Wednesday, 8 to 9 is the show Devils I just talked to you about, the Patrick Dempsey series that comes over from Sky Italia. And from 9 to 10 o'clock on Wednesday, Coroner. Thursday, here's a staple of the CW, 8 to 9, Supernatural. Another show I've never watched before, but I always see the commercials when I watch Batwoman. So all you Supernatural fans, it's coming back 8 o'clock. 9 to 10, The Outpost. That's another acquired show. I don't know if it ran last season. I only tune into the CW to watch my superhero shows in the Arrowverse. So I can't tell you about the Outpost, but 9 to 10 Outpost. On Friday, you have from 8 to 8:30 p.m. Masters of Illusion, which I'm assuming is a magic show. And if you enjoy magic and you like that show, stay in your seat because at 8:30 to 9 o'clock, Masters of Illusion is coming on again. And if you like animals, at 9 o'clock, stay in your seat because from 9 to 9:30, World's Funniest Animals comes on. And if you like the World's Funniest Animals, stay in your seat because at 9:30 to 10, another episode of World's Funniest Animals comes on. So on Friday, if you have nothing to do, I will make a judgment here, and it's not a good one, and I'm just going to be upfront and apologize before I say it. It's kind of sad if you sit at home on a Friday night and watch 2 episodes of Masters of Illusion and 2 episodes of the World's Funniest Animals back to back to back to back, unless you're under 12. Then I'm sure it's going to be great Friday night. Popcorn, good. But anyway, that's on Friday. There's no Saturday listed. And I have noticed by going down this list, I was on the beginning of this list, it said the the CW schedule for the fall, but I've noticed a lot of CW shows, or a number of them, have been left off, such as The Flash and Black Lightning and others. So I don't know whether they're just going to come later on or what, but they happen to not be on here. Sunday, you have 2 shows that you can choose from 8 to 8:30. 2 Sentence Horror Stories comes on, which is a horror anthology. Now, if you listen to the show, you know I'm a fan of that. I think I saw a 2 Sentence Horror Story. This is another acquired show for the CW. I think I saw it on Amazon Prime or something. I think they are a little oriented to a younger audience. They're not really, they're super scary. So I don't think this is for me, but if you like Creepshow, which you all know I'm not a big fan of, you might like 2 Sentence Horror Stories. And if you happen to like that first episode, another episode would be coming on at 8:30 to 9. So that's it's a back-to-back episode of 2 Sentence Horror Stories on Sunday. And to wind up your week, from 9 to 10, the show Pandora comes on. Not familiar with the show Pandora, but I just looked it up for you on Wikipedia. Pandora, this will be the 2nd season of it. The first season ran in 2019. The premise is set in the year 2099. Pandora is a sci-fi action series about a resourceful young woman who has lost everything, but finds a new life at Earth's Space Training Academy, where she and her friends learn to defend the galaxy from threats, both alien and human. When secrets about the nature of her own identity begin to surface, she must uncover the truth, and whether she will be humanity's savior or the instrument of its destruction. So, it sounds like an interesting premise. It's made in Bulgaria, and that's one thing I wanted to point out about it, which I didn't know, obviously, until I looked it up. But a lot of these acquired shows are coming over from Europe, and I find many of them to be good. And I will also put this caveat out there. Sometimes the premise that you see written up in Wikipedia or wherever makes it a little bit too trite. And if you look at the show, it's actually a lot better than what's written here. So this might be a good show. Again, for those of you who listen to the show, know that I always say, I might say a show sounds stupid, but if I've never seen it before, I will never tell you shouldn't waste your time or you shouldn't go look at it or check it out. In fact, if you find that something I say sounds stupid and you disagree with that because you have actually watched the show, I'd like you to email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com and let me know as much. And I'll read all the emails on air. So with that, that's going to finish up this segment, and I will be recapping the last episode, episode 3 of season 1 of Hightown on Stars after this. Don't go away.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
All right, we're back. Hightown, Jack. Ready to do Hightown. I'm just going to go through the episode real quick, and then if we have time, I'll tell you my impressions of it. It's a long episode. This week was episode 3, and the episode begins with a brief flashback as we see how Junior and this guy who looks like Eminem attempted to haul Sherry's body overboard. That was the girl who got shot in the first episode. The Eminem dude dips out, leaving Junior to take care of the problem. He says, "You're the boat guy." So they show how Junior went out and he dumped the body over the boat, the one that washed up on the shore. Okay, back in the present, Junior and Jackie discuss Sherry's murder case. Junior presses her, wondering why she's fixated on the case. Jackie doesn't understand the gravity of the situation. She has no clue how deep the rabbit hole goes, despite Junior attempting to warn her. However, Junior does agree to be her sponsor, so that's something. In the middle of their conversation, Osito, who's the big guy who actually shot Sherry, dials Junior. Junior does not answer. Later in the day, Osito tries to get in touch with Junior again. Junior does not answer. And the M&N guy we saw in the beginning in the flashback, he works with Osito, and he's not done with Junior yet. Osito's pissed because Junior hasn't gotten back to him, so Junior learns the hard way when the guy, the M&N guy, puts Junior's head in the car window, winds it up, and drives down the street for a little while. So since Junior did not call Osito back, Osito shows up at his house and takes him on a ride. Junior tries to apologize for the mess involving Sherry's body, washing back up on the shore. He tries to smooth things over by giving Osito the drug money that he's earned. Osito tells him that Frankie wanted him to kill Junior and promises that if he killed him, he'd do it the right way and no one would find him. And surprisingly, Osito says that if it wasn't Junior's fault that things went awry with Sherry's body, Junior's just soft, and Osito feels it's his job to toughen him up. So Osito drives him to his favorite restaurant, place called Remy's, and he tells him to go beat up an employee, and that will help toughen him up. So Junior does what Osito wants, and not only does Junior do what Osito wants, but he enjoyed it. So it seems like it was a successful night. And at the end of the night, Osito gives him his money back, plus some more, and Junior calls his girl and promises to take her out for a nice night in a hotel room. Now back to Jackie. Well, Jackie goes to court with Ed, and unfortunately the trial goes sideways. She was going to try to get her felony busted down to a misdemeanor, but the felony stands and Jackie gets her license suspended. The judge points out that she checked out of rehab after only 9 days, which did not help her case. After court, Jackie asks Junior to take her by Krista's old house again to see if she can get some more evidence or some way to find her. Lisa, the friend of Krista who has the baby, who kicked Jackie out before, was not happy to see her again. Fortunately for Jackie, Junior happened to have some dope in his pocket, and Lisa, like almost everyone in Hightown apparently, is a heroin addict, so she had let them stay, and she also gave her a suitcase of Krista's, an old suitcase. It didn't have much in it, but at least that's what she was able to get. At home, Jackie looks through some old photos and pictures of her, and she sees her ex-girlfriend, Devon. She tries calling Devon, but Devon doesn't answer. Determined not to give up, Jackie starts searching through the suitcase once again and tearing it apart for any scrap of information she can find. Tucked inside one of the pockets of a pair of shorts, she finds a resident overview slip from Glendon Homes. Glendon Homes was the rehab where they were before. Krista wrote "creepy dude" on the last line of this slip of paper. So feeling invigorated in her case, Jackie returns to the outpatient therapy group, and she pretends that Krista was her old road dog, and she asks any of the people in the group if they have seen her because she hasn't seen her. But remember Bethany, who I said was in IMDb and apparently is going to come back? Well, Bethany did come back. She was in that group, and she confronted she confronted Jackie in the group saying, "I know you weren't a road dog. You're just trying to find information." And Jackie says, "Yes, I am, because I'm trying to find her because she's disappeared." And Bethany tells her that she had an Italian sugar daddy, some man called Anthony DiFicario, and she might be holed up with him somewhere. And while they're having this conversation, the girl Tina, who Jackie was messing with, had her little rendezvous with in rehab, overhears the conversation, and she dials up a mysterious person on her phone and tells them to call her back because homegirl was in here asking questions. So we'll see what that's all about. Jackie tries to get in touch with Anthony on the phone, who happens to be the actor who played Solomon Grundy on the series Gotham. This is the only other time I've ever seen him other than on Gotham. So I guess he got another gig. Anyway, he quickly hangs up when she mentions Krista's name. So obviously he doesn't want to have anything to do with Krista. So instead of giving up, Jackie goes back to her ex Devon and seduces her back in the sack. And the next morning, Jackie asks to borrow her car, as is her pattern, and Devon calls her out for using her, but Jackie does it anyway and takes her car, and she drives to DeVicario Construction, where she hopes to find Krista. There's a quick scene where we see Krista and Anthony DeVicario in his car, and it looks like she might be exchanging sex for safety, or at least Jackie is correct in thinking that that's where Krista is, because apparently she is. Now, Renee visits Frankie at prison. Okay, Renee is the stripper. A lot of names here. Visits Frankie. He's the big boss in prison. They have a little conjugal visit, so to speak. More sex. Anytime they can build sex in Hightown, they do it. So she goes to visit Frankie, and apparently he's running things such in the prison that apparently the guards just let him go in the cafeteria and have sex with his wife. So anyway, Frankie has sex with his wife, Renee, or his girl. I don't think they're married. During that rendezvous, Frankie legitimately wants Renee to start sleeping with Ray to help get out of prison. He told her, I need you to step up and be resourceful. He wants to try to get Ray under his thumb somehow by his girl, Renee, getting close to him. Now, back at the precinct, Ray tries to pressure the chief into taking the ongoing opiate crisis more seriously. Not to much avail. He lies and says he and Renee are constantly in contact. In reality, Ray hits her up with a few hey texts, and she ignores them. Ray finally gets Jackie's message, and he reaches out to her. He agrees to send a patrol car to go pick her up. Ray realizes pretty fast that Jackie is obsessed with the case and doesn't necessarily have any information that they can actually use. Most of what she knows is just theoretical, and she doesn't have any concrete proof of anything involving Krista Collins. He tells her in no uncertain terms, stay away from the case. But he does issue a be on the lookout a bolo for Krista. Ray and Alan sit on Sherry's old house and witness a man exit. They follow him, and not long after, the dude crashes into a car, having overdosed after shooting himself up with heroin. They use Narcan to revive him. Too bad the guy is way too out of it to give them any intel, and he passes out within a few moments in the interrogation room. Ray tells the other guys to get him to a hospital and make sure that he lives. At Xavier's, that's the strip club, Osito comes in again with his girl Kathleen. Renee isn't exactly happy to see him after their last meeting, but he brings her a pretty big wad of cash, and he says, this is from Frankie. He wants you to have it. Ray stops by the strip club. He hits up Renee again with another hey text, and this time, because of Frankie's instructions to her, she responds, and she says, I'm getting off work in an hour. And Ray shows up with the iPad that he got from the police department earlier in the episode, and he gives it to Renee like it's a gift for her kid, and he offers to take her to dinner. But Renee suggests he take her home instead. Ray puts her in the car, starts to take her home. She reaches over, and they pull over on the side of the road and do the nasty, and that's pretty much the end of the episode. So, Hightown, again, it's got a lot of people in it, a lot of stuff going on, but right now it seems like it's just going from one party scene to the next sex scene, and there seems to be an interesting story building, but they better get to it pretty quickly next episode, because there's just, other than that, it's just a lot of sex and drugs. It's still better than Creepshow. Okay, I gotta tell you that. It's still better than Creepshow. So next episode, I will recap Billions, the one that's going to come on next Sunday, and then the one after that, we will continue with Hightown. And that's it for the GSMC television podcast. We're part of the mighty GSMC podcast network. Please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you would please, please, please subscribe to the podcast, Give me a rating. Let me know what you think. Email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com. I'll be happy to read all of the emails. I really want your feedback so we can make this show as enjoyable for you as possible. Remember, no matter how many people you see in the street, and they're doing good work in the street, I am behind the protest, but we still are in a global pandemic. So please, as much as possible, stay socially distanced from people, wash your hands, wear your face masks, and let's try to get the curve all the way down to 0. My name is Howard Fletcher. I'm here with Jack the Black Pug. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Television Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.